The forceps trembled in Dr. Lisa Patterson's hand as she pulled the specimen from David Matthews's leg. 3 inches of white, thread-like tissue emerged from the incision, still moving. The operating room fell silent. 23 years of surgery, and Patterson had never seen anything alive come out of a patient like this. "Bag it," she whispered. The thing writhed in the stainless steel dish, seeking escape. On the ultrasound monitor, dozens more crawled through muscle tissue like worms through soil. The man on the table, gaunt, gray-bearded, homeless, had carried these parasites for 32 years. They'd been waiting, growing, hiding in tissue that should have been dead. "How many?" the resident asked. Patterson looked at the imaging. She counted 20 visible structures, knowing more lurked deeper. "We need CDC, now. To understand how a decorated war hero ended up here, we must go back. Back to a small lump he ignored. Back to March 2023. Detroit. Leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments, along with the city you're watching from. Now, let's continue with the story. David Clayton Matthews woke to the sound of rain hammering the broken windows of the Packard Auto Factory. March in Detroit meant cold that seeped into your bones, into the cardboard beneath you, into every forgotten corner of your life. He was 52 years old. His hands moved through the morning ritual without thought. Check the boots for rats, check the Rolex on his wrist, check his surroundings. The watch had stopped at 3:47, but he wore it anyway. The inscription on the back was too scratched to read now, but he knew what it said. He'd known for 17 years. Building the future, Thomas and David. When he tried to stand, pain shot through his right calf. He rolled up his pant leg. A lump, small as a pea, sat just below his knee. The skin around it looked red and angry. "Just a bump," he muttered to the empty air. His voice came out rough. He hadn't spoken to anyone in 2 days. He looked nothing like the man in the photo he kept in his wallet. That David Matthews had stood in front of a suburban Boston home with a white picket fence. His wife Emily smiled beside him, one hand on their son Jake's shoulder, the other holding their daughter Lily's hand. Jake was 10 in that photo, already tall for his age, wearing his Little League uniform. Lily was 7, gap-toothed and grinning, wanting to be a doctor when she grew up. The photo was from 2007. Christmas morning. On the back, in Emily's careful handwriting, "No matter what happens, we're proud of you. Love, E.J.L." That was the year David had everything. A successful construction engineering business. A partner he trusted like a brother, Thomas Patrick Brennan, fire captain by day, investor by night. They'd just broken ground on their biggest project yet in Louisiana. At the ceremony, Thomas had given him the Rolex. "We're not just building buildings, David," Thomas had said, Irish accent thick with emotion. "We're building the future for our kids." David had believed him. He'd believed in everything back then. He'd served in the Gulf War in 1991. Earned a Bronze Star he couldn't remember receiving. His grandfather had stormed Normandy. His father had survived Vietnam. "Matthews' men served," his father always said. "They protected. They sacrificed. They didn't complain about bumps and bruises." But that was before 2008. Before the fire. Before the cancer. Before everything collapsed like a bridge with its supports cut away. Now, 14 years later, David lived in an abandoned factory and ignored the small lump on his leg. He'd survived worse. He just didn't know that something had been waiting inside him for 32 years to be found. Marcus Henderson found David that morning, limping between the rusted machinery. Everyone called him Mac. He was 71, a Vietnam veteran who'd made the Packard factory his home for the past decade. His face was weathered like old leather, but his eyes stayed sharp. "Let me see that leg, Matthews." David hesitated, then rolled up his pant leg. The lump seemed larger than it had an hour ago. Mac bent down, studying it without touching. "Rat bite. We got rats here big as cats. I got bit last month, swelled up just like that." He straightened, bones creaking. "Put some ice on it." "You'll be fine," David wanted to believe him. "Yeah, probably just a rat." "You Matthews men." Mac shook his head. "Too proud to see a doctor even when you're dying." "I'm not dying from a rat bite. I knew a guy once. Ignored an infection like that. Pride killed him deader than the infection ever could." Mac pulled a bottle of aspirin from his coat pocket, shook out 2 pills. "Take these. And if it gets worse, we're going to the free clinic. No arguments." David swallowed the aspirin dry. Mac's words hung in the air like smoke. The old man coughed, a deep rattling sound that made David wince. "You take care of yourself too, Mac." "I won't be around forever, son." Mac clapped him on the shoulder and walked away, disappearing into the shadows of the factory. 3 months crawled by. June brought heat that made the factory floor shimmer. David woke one morning and reached for the lump on his calf. His fingers found empty skin. He sat up fast, heart hammering, pulled his pant leg up. The lump had moved, 2 inches higher, closer to his knee. "What the hell?" He pressed on it, felt something slide away beneath his fingertip, like a marble rolling under skin. His stomach lurched. He rubbed his eyes, looked again. The lump sat there, red and swollen. "Just swelling," he told himself, "fluid shifting." But he checked it obsessively after that. Morning, noon, night. By July, 3 more lumps appeared, different spots on the same leg. He'd wake in darkness and swear they'd moved while he slept. The flashbacks came more frequently. Kuwait, 1991. The oasis near Basra, where his unit had stopped to refill canteens. Mosquitoes thick as fog. Private Luis Rodriguez laughing, swatting them away. "These bugs are the real enemy, Matthews." Then the crack of sniper fire. Rodriguez dropping. Blood spreading across sand while David held him, covered in his friend's blood. Mosquitoes landing on both of them, biting, feeding. David hadn't cared. He'd wanted them to kill him, too. He shook the memory away, looked at the family photo he kept in his wallet. Almost called Jake twice. His son was 28 now, a Marine. David wondered if Jake still played baseball, if Lily had become a doctor like she'd wanted. He put the phone down both times. September arrived with cold rain. Mac noticed David's limp getting worse. "We're going to the clinic," Mac announced. "End of discussion." The free clinic smelled like disinfectant and desperation. They waited 4 hours in plastic chairs bolted to the floor. When the intake nurse learned David was homeless, her expression shifted from tired to cold. "Any drug use?" "No." "Alcohol?" "No." She stamped his chart. "Charity care, low priority." The doctor looked about 30, exhausted, with 30 more patients waiting. He examined David's leg for maybe 30 seconds, typing into his computer while he talked. "Probably lipomas, benign fatty tumors, nothing to worry about." "They move," David said. "I can feel them moving." The doctor didn't look up. "Sir, have you been drinking?" I told the nurse no. "I'm a veteran. Gulf War. PTSD can cause tactile hallucinations, feeling things that aren't there. The doctor handed him a prescription slip. Ibuprofen for the swelling, and here's a referral to our psych clinic. 4 minutes. That's how long the appointment lasted. Outside, David crumpled the prescription and threw it in the trash. Mac watched him, concerned. See? Just fatty tumors. You worried for nothing. David nodded, but his hands wouldn't stop shaking. The doctor's words echoed, hallucinations. Maybe he was losing his mind. Maybe 14 years of living like this had finally broken something inside him that couldn't be fixed. The lumps kept moving. By October, there were 5 of them. His legs swelled, hot to the touch. Low-grade fever made him sweat through his shirt at night. He stopped eating. Couldn't sleep. But Matthew's men didn't complain. They didn't ask for help. Not until it was too late. December came to Detroit like a judgment. David woke at 3:47 in the morning, the exact time his Rolex had stopped weeks ago. The coincidence felt like an omen he didn't want to understand. His right leg had swollen to twice its normal size. The skin stretched tight and purple, hot as a stove. Red streaks ran from his calf toward his groin like lightning seeking ground. When he tried to stand, the leg buckled. He hit the concrete floor hard. He lay there, shaking. Fever burned through him. 5 distinct lumps moved beneath his skin now, and he could feel every one of them crawling. "Mac," he called out. His voice barely carried. "Mac!" Footsteps shuffled across the factory floor. Mac appeared, took one look at David's leg, and swore. "Jesus Christ, Matthews! We're going to the hospital. Now." "They won't help." David's teeth chattered. "They think I'm crazy." "Then we make them help." Mac pulled out a crumpled wad of bills. $23, his entire month's earnings from collecting cans. "This'll get us a taxi." Boston Medical Center's emergency room blazed with fluorescent light. A security guard looked up as they entered, his expression shifting from bored to suspicious when he saw 2 homeless men. "You can't sleep here," the guard said. "He's not sleeping," Mac snapped. "He's sick. Look at his leg." The guard glanced down, then reluctantly jerked his head toward the waiting area. They sat for 6 hours. David watched other patients come and go. A mother with a sick child, seen within 30 minutes. A man clutching his chest rushed back immediately. But David and Mac stayed in their plastic chairs, the smell of the street clinging to them like a warning label. When they finally called his name, the intake nurse's nose wrinkled. She typed quickly, barely looking at him. "Insurance? No. Medicaid." Lost the paperwork. She stamped his chart hard enough that David flinched. "Charity care, low priority." The doctor who examined him looked like he'd been awake for days. Young, a resident maybe, running on coffee and obligation. He pulled back the makeshift bandage on David's leg and grimaced. Cellulitis. Probably MRSA. He was already writing the prescription. "I'll give you antibiotics. Something's moving under the skin," David said. "I can feel them." The doctor's pen stopped. He looked at David properly for the first time. "Sir, have you been using methamphetamine?" "No. I'm a veteran. I served in Kuwait. PTSD can cause paranoid delusions and tactile hallucinations." The doctor's voice had shifted from tired to dismissive. "I'm also referring you to psychiatric services." "I'm not crazy." David's voice cracked. "Please, just look closer. Security can help you find your way out." The doctor was already moving to the next curtain. The security guard wasn't gentle. He escorted them through the automatic doors and into the night. Mac argued until the guard threatened to call the police. They sat on the curb outside. An ambulance screamed past, lights painting them red and blue. The sound triggered something in David's memory, another ambulance, another emergency, Emily's hand going cold in his. "We'll try another hospital tomorrow," Max said quietly. David put his head in his hands. "No, I'm done. Just let me die, Mac. Don't you dare." Mac grabbed his shoulder hard. "Don't you dare give up, Matthews." They walked 3 miles back to the factory. David leaned on Mac the whole way, the old man's breath coming in ragged gasps. It took 2 hours. When they finally collapsed in their corners, neither of them spoke. Mac gave David his only blanket. "You're going to be okay, son. I promise." David was too weak to argue. He fell into a fevered sleep where Rodriguez died over and over, and the mosquitoes never stopped biting. Mac couldn't sleep. He sat against the wall, watching David shake with fever in the darkness. The kid was dying. Anyone with eyes could see it. The system had failed him, failed both of them really, but that's what the system did to men like them. Mac made his decision. He counted out his money. $47. Everything he had. He found a scrap of paper and wrote slowly, his arthritic hands making the letters crooked. "Matthews, if you're reading this, I'm gone. Don't be stubborn. Call 911. You deserve to live. Freedom isn't free, but neither is surviving it. Forgive yourself, Mac." He set the money beside the note. Then he pulled out the old cell phone someone had donated to him months ago. It still had minutes left. He dialed 911 carefully, then stopped before pressing the call button, left it ready, set it on top of the money where David would find it. Mac lay down on his own cardboard bed. The pain in his chest had started an hour ago, but he hadn't mentioned it. Didn't want to worry the kid. He closed his eyes and thought about his daughter, the one he hadn't seen in 20 years, thought about all the men he'd served with in Vietnam, thought about David, still young enough to have a life ahead of him if he'd just ask for help. "Take care of him, God," Mac whispered. "He's worth saving." The heart attack was quick. Mac died peacefully, still thinking about second chances. David woke when dawn light crept through the broken windows. He called for Mac. Silence answered. He dragged himself across the concrete floor, his useless leg trailing behind him. Mac lay still, eyes closed, one hand over his heart. Dead. David found the note, the money, the phone with 911 ready to dial. He read Mac's words through tears, the first he'd cried in 15 years. "He died trying to save me." David looked at his blackened leg, looked at the phone. Pride or survival? The choice had never been clearer. His hands shook as he picked up the phone. "I'm sorry, Mac. You were right." He pressed call. 911, what's your emergency?" David's voice barely worked. "I'm dying. Please help me." Then he passed out, still holding Mac's hand. The paramedics found David unconscious beside Mac's body. One of them checked for Mac's pulse, shook his head, then focused on David. "BP 80/40, septic shock. We need to move." They radioed ahead while loading David into the ambulance. He regained consciousness briefly, his eyes unfocused. "Don't leave Mac alone," he whispered. "Sir, he's gone. We need to get you to the hospital. He saved me." The paramedic squeezed his hand. "Then let us finish what he started." Boston Medical Center's emergency room at 2:47 in the morning was controlled chaos. David's gurney burst through the doors, a team descending immediately. Scissors cut away his filthy clothes. 4 lines went in. Monitors beeped to life. Sarah Brennan was 20 minutes into her night shift when she took the assignment. Another homeless case, she thought, reviewing the chart. David Matthews, 52, no fixed address. She'd seen dozens like him, good people ground down by circumstances until the system stopped seeing them as human. She was preparing his IV when she noticed the watch on his wrist. Strange for a homeless patient to have a Rolex, even a broken one. Curiosity made her look closer. The inscription on the back stopped her cold. Building the Future, Thomas and David. Sarah's hands went numb. Thomas. Her father's name was Thomas. She looked at David's face, gaunt, bearded, aged beyond his years, but the bone structure, she knew that face. She'd grown up seeing it in a photograph on her father's desk. 3 men at a groundbreaking ceremony. Her father in the center, beaming. The man on the right, labeled on the back, David Matthews. "Brilliant engineer," her father used to say. "Good man, like a brother to me." But that had been 2008, before the fire. Before her father died, Sarah's hands shook as she cleaned David's arm for the IV. This couldn't be him. The David Matthews her father knew had been successful, confident. This man was broken. But the watch didn't lie. Dr. Lisa Patterson strode in, attending physician with 2 decades of experience written in the lines around her eyes. "What do we have?" The resident rattled off vitals. "Homeless male, septic shock, cellulitis in the right lower extremity." Patterson moved to examine the leg, already planning standard treatment. Sarah found her voice. "Doctor, you need to look at this closely." Patterson shot her an irritated glance, but pulled back the temporary bandage. Her expression changed. She placed her hand on the swelling, then jerked it back. "Did that just move?" "That's what I saw," Sarah said quietly. Patterson pressed again, more carefully. Her face went pale. "Get me an ultrasound. Now." The portable machine arrived within minutes. The tech squeezed gel onto David's leg and moved the probe across the skin. The screen showed gray tissue, blood vessels, muscle. Then something else. Linear structures, dozens of them, moving independently through the tissue. "Doctor," the tech said, voice tight. "Are those alive?" The room fell silent. Everyone stared at the monitor. The structures wriggled like worms through David's muscle, coordinated yet independent. Patterson's voice came out steady, despite the horror on her face. "Get infectious disease down here immediately, and call the CDC." The resident looked up from the monitor. "What are they?" "I have no idea, but they're definitely alive." Sarah stood frozen, watching the things crawl through David's leg. He wasn't crazy. It was real. All of it was real. She looked at his face, peaceful in unconscious sedation, and thought about her father running into that warehouse fire to save him. Had this man been worth dying for? They rushed David to imaging. Sarah followed, unusual for a nurse, but no one questioned her. The CT scan revealed the full extent of the infection. The organisms, whatever they were, extended from his ankle to his hip. The radiologist counted at least 50 distinct structures. Dr. Patterson made the call to the Centers for Disease Control herself. Unknown parasitic infection, multiple organisms. Behavior unlike anything documented. We need your best parasitologist. Dr. Robert Chen would fly in from Atlanta by morning. Sarah requested David's personal belongings. Everything he owned fit in a single plastic bag. She laid the contents on a table in the supply room. A stopped Rolex, a worn wallet with $3 and an expired license, an Army surplus blue shirt, and a small rusted metal box with a lock. The family photo in his wallet made her chest tighten. Christmas, 2007. David, his wife, a young boy, a little girl, all of them smiling in front of a suburban home. On the back, in careful, feminine handwriting, "No matter what happens, we're proud of you. Love, E.J.L." This successful man with a loving family had become homeless. Her father had died saving him, and he'd ended up like this. Sarah found bolt cutters in maintenance. Alone in the supply room, she cut through the rusted lock. Inside the box, a bronze star in its original case, dusty and untouched. A military photograph, David's unit in Kuwait, 1991.
One soldier circled in red marker with writing on the back, Luis Rodriguez, KIA, February 1991. An unsealed letter addressed to Mrs. Maria Rodriguez, Brooklyn, New York, dated March 1991, never sent. And another letter, this one sealed, addressed to David from Emily Matthews, postmarked January 2009. Sarah held Emily's letter. It wasn't addressed to her. Opening someone else's mail felt wrong. But David might die without ever reading it, and something told her it contained answers. Her hands trembled as she carefully opened the envelope. The letter was dated January 15, 2009, written in the same handwriting from the photo. My dearest David, if you're reading this, I'm gone. The doctors say I have weeks, maybe days. I need you to know something about the fire in December 2008. Thomas Brennan died saving you.
I never told you because I was afraid. Afraid you'd blame yourself. Afraid you'd spiral further than you already had. But I was wrong. You deserve to know. You deserve to grieve him properly. David, you carry so much guilt. Kuwait, Rodriguez, your father's disappointment, now me. But baby, none of this is your fault. The bronze star in that box, you earned it. Not for Rodriguez, you couldn't save him, but for the 6 other men you pulled from that burning vehicle 2 days later. You've forgotten, but I remember. The Army gave you that medal, and you hid it away like it was shameful. You saved 6 lives, David. 6 families got to keep their fathers, their sons, their brothers because of you. Please, when I'm gone, don't disappear. Jake and Lily need you. They love you. I love you. Thomas Brennan saved your life. Honor him by living it. No matter what happens, we're proud of you.
Love always, Emily. Sarah finished reading, tears streaming down her face. David hadn't known about her father's death. Emily had hidden it, then died before telling him the truth. He'd carried guilt without knowing its full weight. His isolation, his homelessness. It was all built on a misunderstanding and grief. She carefully folded the letter and placed it back in the envelope. He needed to know, but not yet. Not until he was stable enough to survive the truth. By morning, David's fever had dropped slightly from the antibiotics, but the organisms continued moving beneath his skin. Dr. Patterson decided they needed a tissue sample. In the procedure room, David drifted in and out of consciousness. Sarah held his hand. She didn't know if he could feel it, but it seemed important. Patterson made a small incision under local anesthesia. She inserted fine forceps into the tissue. closed them around something, pulled. A white, thread-like organism emerged. 3 inches long, thin as fishing line, still moving. It writhed in the forceps, trying to escape. The entire room held its breath. David's eyes opened, glassy with sedation, but aware enough to see. Tears started rolling down his face. "I'm not crazy," he whispered. "I'm not crazy. It's real." Sarah squeezed his hand. "You're not crazy. We believe you now." The specimen went to the lab immediately. Under the microscope, it revealed itself as Dirofilaria immitis, dog heartworm larvae. But there was something else. Bacterial colonies living inside the parasite itself. Dr. Chen arrived from the CDC by noon. He examined the specimen, ran tests, consulted databases. By evening, he had a theory. "Mosquito-borne transmission," he told the assembled team. "Where did the patient serve?" Sarah checked the records. "Gulf War, 1991. Kuwait." Chen nodded slowly. "That fits. The larva entered via mosquito bite, probably multiple exposures. They encapsulated in subcutaneous tissue and went dormant. When his immune system weakened, malnutrition, stress, living conditions, they activated." "Can you treat it?" Patterson asked. "The parasites, yes, but this bacterial infection inside them, I've never seen this strain before. We'll need to run more tests." David woke fully on the 3rd day. His fever was controlled, his mind clear for the first time in months. Sarah was sitting beside his bed when his eyes opened. "You're the nurse," he said, voice rough. "Thank you." Sarah took a breath. "I'm not just your nurse. My name is Sarah Brennan. Thomas Patrick Brennan was my father." David's face went through a series of expressions: confusion, recognition, horror. "Thomas? Captain Brennan? He died in December 2008, in a warehouse fire." Sarah's voice stayed steady despite the emotion underneath. "Do you remember?" "I remember smoke. Someone pulling me out. They told me a firefighter died, but Emily..." Understanding flooded his face. "Oh, God. It was Thomas?" "He died saving you." David's face crumpled. "I didn't know. Emily never told me. Why wouldn't she tell me?" "I don't know, but he's gone. And you..." Sarah's control cracked. "You ended up here? Homeless? After everything he sacrificed? You think I wanted this?" David's voice rose. "Emily got cancer 2 months after that fire. 2 months! I lost everything trying to save her. The company, the house. My kids had to leave. I couldn't face them as a failure." Sarah wanted to hate him, wanted to scream at him for wasting her father's sacrifice. But looking at his broken face, she saw a man who'd punished himself more than she ever could. "My father would be heartbroken seeing you like this," she said quietly. She pulled out Emily's letter. "Your wife wrote this a month before she died. You were supposed to read it years ago." David stared at the envelope like it might bite him. "I can't. Please." "You can. And you will." Sarah placed it on his chest and walked out. David sat alone with the letter for a long time. His hands shook as he opened it. As he read, his breathing changed. Shock, grief, disbelief. By the end, sobs racked his body, deep, wrenching sounds that came from somewhere he'd locked away for 16 years. He clutched the letter to his chest. "I didn't know," he whispered to the ceiling, to Emily, to God, to whoever might be listening. "I'm so sorry. I didn't know." Sarah stood outside the door, listening to him cry. She thought about her father, about his belief that David Matthews was worth saving. Maybe he'd been right. Maybe under all that guilt and pride there was still something worth saving. She wiped her own tears and went back to work. There was still a long way to go. The parasites were only part of the problem. The bacterial infection remained a mystery. And David's children still didn't know their father was alive. But for the first time in 16 years, David Matthews was crying. And sometimes, that's where healing begins. The next morning, Dr. Patterson and Dr. Chen presented David with 3 options. Sarah stood in the corner of the room, present but silent. Patterson's voice was clinical, but her eyes were kind. "Mr. Matthews, we've identified the organisms as Dirofilaria immitis, dog heartworm larvae. The bacterial infection inside them is still under analysis, but we need to act quickly." David sat propped up on pillows, Emily's letter folded in his hand. He'd read it 17 times through the night. "What are my options?" First option, high-dose antiparasitic drugs. Ivermectin. Success rate about 60%, but there's a risk of anaphylactic shock when the parasites die all at once. Second option, surgery. We open your leg and extract them manually. 90% removal rate, but it's extensive, 6 to 8 hours. Very risky with an active infection. You could die on the table. Third option, amputation below the knee. 100% removes the parasites from your leg, though the bacteria might remain in other tissue. The room fell quiet. David looked at his leg, then at his hands. Hands that had built bridges, held his children, held Rodriguez as he died. "If I do nothing?" Patterson didn't sugarcoat it. "You'll die. Probably within a week. It won't be easy." David closed his eyes. Behind his lids, he saw Mac's note. "You deserve to live." He saw Emily's words, "Honor Thomas by living." He thought about Rodriguez, about the 6 soldiers he'd saved but couldn't remember saving, about Jake and Lily, who'd grown up thinking their father was a hero. Sarah spoke from the corner. "My father ran into a burning building for you. Don't waste that gift." David opened his eyes and looked at her. 24 hours ago she'd been a stranger. Now she was the daughter of the man whose death he'd never known about, whose sacrifice he'd never properly honored. "Surgery," he said. "I want the surgery." "Mr. Matthews, you need to understand." "I understand. I've been dying for 16 years, Doctor." His voice grew stronger. "If I'm going to die, I want to die trying. I owe that to everyone who believed in me when I stopped believing in myself." Patterson nodded. "We'll schedule it for tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. Is there anyone you want us to contact? Family?" David looked at Sarah. "If I don't make it, will you find my kids?" "Tell them I'm sorry. Tell them their mother was right about everything." "You're going to tell them yourself," Sarah said, "just in case." David pulled out the unsealed letter from the metal box. "And this? Will you mail this? I made a promise 33 years ago. It's time I kept it." That night, Sarah sat with David. The hospital was quiet, machines beeping their steady rhythms. She told him stories about her father, how he taught her to fish, how his laugh could fill a room, how he talked about David Matthews like he was family. "He was a good man," David said, crying again.
Crying seemed easier now, like a dam had broken. "I wish I'd known. I would have gone to his funeral. I would have thanked him." "He knew you were grateful. That's why he went in after you." "I don't deserve what he did." Sarah thought about that. Maybe it's not about deserving. Maybe it's about accepting. As dawn broke, orderlies came to prep David for surgery. He handed Sarah the Rodriguez letter one more time. "Please, if something happens." "Nothing's going to happen. But yes, I'll mail it." The operating room at 703 was cold and bright. The surgical team assembled, Patterson as lead surgeon, Chen as consultant, an anesthesiologist, 2 surgical nurses, and Sarah, who had requested permission to observe. David had insisted on regional anesthesia. "I want to stay awake. I need to see them come out." The anesthesiologist had argued, but David was firm. They compromised on a spinal block with light sedation. Numb from the waist down, but conscious if needed. "If you panic, we put you fully under," the anesthesiologist warned. "Understood." Patterson picked up the scalpel. "Ready, Mr. Matthews?" David looked up at the lights, then at Sarah standing by his head. "Ready." The first incision ran the length of his calf. Skin parted. Subcutaneous fat glistened yellow-white. Then movement. Visible movement beneath the tissue. The surgical nurse gasped. White filaments writhed in the wound, trying to burrow deeper into muscle. Dozens of them, like something from a nightmare made flesh. Chen leaned in. "They're evading the incision. They know we're here. We need to be faster." Patterson used fine forceps to grasp the first organism. She pulled gently. It stretched. 3 inches, 4, 5, still attached deep in the muscle. She pulled harder. It snapped. The upper half writhed in her forceps. The lower half vanished back into tissue. "They're fragmenting," Chen said. "If pieces remain, they might regenerate. We need to extract them whole." Patterson switched to microsurgery technique. Finer instruments, slower, more careful work. Each organism had to be traced to its anchor point and removed intact. David could see his own leg reflected in the angled monitor above. Watching worms crawl through his muscle triggered a flashback. Kuwait, the oasis. Rodriguez's blood soaking into sand. Mosquitoes landing on both of them. His breathing quickened. The monitor beeped faster. Sarah moved to his side, took his hand. "David, look at me, not the screen." He focused on her face, her father's eyes, her father's determination. "Tell me about the Rolex," she said. "Why did Thomas give it to you?" David's voice came out shaky. "The groundbreaking ceremony. Louisiana Project. Thomas said we weren't just building buildings, we were building the future. For our kids." His voice broke. "He had such faith in me." He was right to have faith. You're here. You're fighting. That's what he wanted. Patterson continued extracting parasites one by one, placing each in a numbered specimen jar. David counted through his sedation haze, 23, 24, 25. Each one felt like a small victory. Each one gone meant one less thing eating him alive. At the 3-hour mark, Chen, examining specimens under a microscope, called Patterson over. "You need to see this."
Patterson glanced at the microscope while maintaining sterile field. Her face went pale. "What is it?" the resident asked. "There are bacterial colonies inside the parasites," Chen said quietly. "A secondary infection we haven't identified yet." Patterson returned to the surgery. "Can it wait?" "It'll have to. But doctor, even if we remove all the parasites, this bacteria might still kill him." David heard through the sedation fog. "Might still kill him. All this, and he might still die." "Keep going," he whispered. "Please keep going." Patterson needed a second incision in the thigh. A cluster of 20 parasites had nested together like tangled yarn. David's blood pressure dropped. The anesthesiologist called out warnings. "He's not tolerating this well." "Almost done," Patterson said. "Hold on, David." "Keep going." By hour 7, Patterson extracted the 73rd and final organism. She checked the tissue thoroughly with the ultrasound probe. "I think that's all of them." 14 inches of incisions, 47 staples, drainage tubes. The surgery had lasted 8 hours and 17 minutes. Patterson leaned close to David's face. "David, can you hear me?" His eyes fluttered open. "Did you get them?" "All of them. 73 total." Tears ran down into his hair. "Thank you. I felt them leave. I felt them." They wheeled him to recovery. Sarah followed, then slid down the wall outside his room and cried from exhaustion and relief. Dr. Chen found her there. "Sarah, we have a problem." She looked up, fear replacing relief. "The bacterial infection. It's replicating faster than we expected. If we can't identify it and find the right treatment in the next 48 hours... He didn't finish the sentence. Sarah understood. Remove the parasites, and the bacteria might still kill him. Save him from one nightmare, only to lose him to another. She went back into David's room. He was sleeping, face peaceful for the first time since she'd met him. She sat beside the bed and took his hand. "You fought so hard to get here," she whispered. "Don't give up now. Your kids need to meet you. Luis Rodriguez's family needs to know you kept your promise. The world needs to know that broken things can be healed." She stayed there through the night, holding the hand of the man her father died to save, praying that the sacrifice wouldn't be in vain. David woke on the first day after surgery to pain that made breathing difficult. The morphine helped, but not enough. When he looked down at his heavily bandaged leg, drainage tubes snaking out from beneath the dressings, he felt both relief and dread. Sarah was there when his eyes opened. "You made it," she said. "The parasites are gone." "All 73. The bacteria?" Her hesitation told him everything. "Dr. Chen is working on identifying it. They're running tests." "How long do I have?" "They don't know." "Maybe days." She wouldn't lie to him. He appreciated that. David closed his eyes. "Don't call my kids." "What?" "David, you said—" "I know what I said." His voice was firm despite the weakness. "But look at me, Sarah. I'm still a homeless man with a destroyed leg. They're better off remembering who I was, not seeing what I've become." Sarah's jaw tightened. "That's the most selfish thing I've ever heard." "You don't get to make that choice for them." "I'm their father. It's my choice." "Your father?" Her voice rose. "You haven't been their father for 16 years. You ran away." "I was protecting them." "From what?" "From love. From seeing you human? Sarah stood abruptly. You're still running, David. Even now, you're still running. She left the room. David stared at the ceiling, her words burning worse than the incisions. By the second day, David's temperature spiked to 103. The bacterial infection was spreading despite broad-spectrum antibiotics. Nothing worked. Dr. Chen spent 18 hours in the lab comparing the bacteria to every known strain in the CDC database. Nothing matched. Patterson assembled a team conference. Infectious disease specialists crowded around displays showing the mysterious bacteria multiplying in tissue samples. "We need to find the origin," Chen said. "If we know where it came from, we might understand how to treat it." Sarah spoke up from where she stood at the back. "He served in Kuwait. Gulf War, 1991, near Basra." Chen's eyes lit up. "That's our lead." He called the Army Medical Research Institute of Infectious Diseases at Fort Detrick. "I need environmental samples from Operation Desert Storm. Kuwait, Basra region, specifically water sources. This is life or death." The wait began. 24 hours became 48. David's condition deteriorated. The fever brought delirium. He thrashed in bed, calling out for Rodriguez, reliving Kuwait in fractured fragments. "Luis, I'm sorry I couldn't save you. The mosquitoes, they're everywhere." Sarah sat beside him through the worst of it, cooling his forehead with damp cloths. When he had lucid moments, they were brief and devastating. "Sarah? I'm here. Tell Jake I loved watching his baseball games. Tell Lily I'm sorry I missed her graduation from medical school." His breathing was labored. "Tell them I was too broken to come home." "Tell them yourself," Sarah said, crying. "I won't get the chance." After he slipped back into delirium, Sarah couldn't take it anymore. At 3 a.m, she went to the hospital chapel. Empty and silent, it smelled of old wood and candles. She sat in a pew and pulled David's wallet from her pocket. Inside, she'd seen the worn paper with phone numbers written in his careful handwriting. Jake Matthews, Lily Matthews, both with Boston area codes. She knew David had asked her not to call, but he was dying. His children deserved to know, deserved the chance to say goodbye or hello, or whatever they needed to say after 16 years. Emily's letter echoed in her mind. "Jake and Lily need you." Sarah pulled out her phone, dialed Jake's number. It rang 3 times. "Hello?" A man's voice, deep and cautious. Military bearing evident even in that single word. "Is this Jake Matthews?" "Yes. Who is this?" "My name is Sarah Brennan. I'm a nurse at Boston Medical Center." She took a breath. "Your father is here." The silence stretched so long she thought he'd hung up. "My father is dead." "No, he's alive. He's been very sick, but he's alive." "I don't know who you are, but this isn't funny." His voice hardened. "My father disappeared 16 years ago. We looked everywhere, hired investigators. He's gone." "I'm holding a photograph right now, from 2007. You're standing in front of your house with your mom and your sister. You're wearing a baseball uniform. Your mom wrote on the back." Another long silence. "What did she write?" "No matter what happens, we're proud of you. Love, E.J.L."
She heard his breathing change, heavy, controlled, like he was trying not to break. "How do you have that photo?" "Your father carried it every single day for 16 years. Even when he had nothing else, no home, no money, nothing, he had this. He never let it go." "What room?" 437. "I'll be there in the morning." The line went dead. Sarah sat in the chapel staring at the phone. She'd broken her promise to David. But Emily had asked her to bring them home. Sometimes keeping one promise meant breaking another. At 4:47 in the morning, Sarah's phone rang. Dr. Chen. "Get to the lab, now." She found him at a computer, eyes bloodshot, but alive with excitement. On the screen, bacterial culture data from 1991 matched against David's infection. "The Army found it," Chen said. "A specific oasis near Basra, surveyed during Desert Storm environmental assessment. They documented this exact bacterial strain, a variant of Francisella tularensis, tularemia." "Rabbit fever," Sarah said. She'd studied it in nursing school. "Yes, but this strain only exists in that one location. Several soldiers were infected. The Army developed a treatment protocol." He pulled up another file. "Streptomycin, gentamicin, and doxycycline. Specific combination, specific dosages. It worked in 1991. "Then let's start it now." "There's something else." Chen looked at her. "David was probably treated for this back in 1991. Standard fever protocol for troops. But the treatment only knocked it back. Didn't eliminate it. The bacteria hid inside the parasites for 32 years. Sarah felt the weight of that irony. So if he'd been treated earlier, he could have been cured decades ago, yes. Chen pulled up more data. But here's what matters now. This parasitic bacterial symbiosis has never been documented in medical literature. David's case is the first. We're already running screenings on other Gulf War veterans. So far, we've identified 12 with similar infections. All of them thought they had fatty lumps or nerve damage. All of them were dismissed by doctors. All of them are slowly dying." Sarah understood. "Because of David's case, you found them." "Yes. His suffering, his 16 years of refusing treatment out of pride, it almost killed him. But it also gave the infection time to develop into something recognizable. If he'd come in earlier, we might have removed one lump and missed everything else. He saved lives by almost dying." Chen nodded. "We need to start treatment immediately. But Sarah, he's critical. This might be too late." She ran to David's room. He was unconscious, fever raging. She took his hand. "Hold on, David. Just hold on. You're not just fighting for yourself anymore. 12 other veterans need you to survive. Your children are coming. Mac died believing you deserved to live. My father died saving you. Don't let them be wrong. Please." The antibiotic cocktail began dripping into his IV. High doses. Last chance. All they could do now was wait. The first 12 hours were the worst. David's fever spiked even higher as the bacteria died off, releasing toxins into his bloodstream. At hour 14, he seized. The code blue alarm brought a team running. Sarah stood outside the room, hands pressed against the glass, watching them fight to stabilize him. When his heart rhythm steadied, she allowed herself to breathe. By hour 18, something changed. The fever began to drop. 103 degrees. 101. 99.4.
At hour 24, David opened his eyes clearly, for the first time in days. Sarah was there, exhausted but alert. "Am I alive?" His voice was barely a whisper. "Yes." She was crying. "Yes, you're alive." "The bacteria?" "Dying." "The treatment's working. You're going to make it, David." He closed his eyes, tears leaking from the corners. "Mac, Emily, Thomas. I made it." Sarah wiped her own eyes. "David, I need to tell you something." His eyes opened, suddenly wary. "I called Jake. He's coming today. With Lily." David's face went through shock, anger, panic. "You what?" "Sarah, you had no right. I had every right. Your wife asked me to. I'm not ready. I can't face them like this. You can. And you will. They'll be here in 2 hours." "No!" He tried to sit up, grimaced at the pain. "Please, Sarah, send them away." "I won't do that. I'm still a homeless man with scars and shame." "You're their father," Sarah said firmly. "That's all that matters to them." She left before he could argue more, arranged for the hospital barber, helped David shave 16 years of beard, trimmed his hair. When he saw himself in the mirror, he barely recognized the face looking back. "I look old." "You look like a father," Sarah said, handing him a clean hospital gown. She positioned him sitting up, pillows arranged. His hands wouldn't stop shaking. "What do I say?" "Start with, 'I'm sorry.'" "What if they hate me?" "They won't." "I abandoned them, Sarah. When their mother died, when they needed me most, I disappeared." "You were drowning." "They'll understand that." At exactly 10 in the morning there was a knock. David's breath caught. Sarah squeezed his shoulder once, then opened the door. Jake entered first. 28 years old, Marine Corps dress uniform, regulation haircut, broad shoulders, his father's height. He stopped in the doorway, staring. Behind him came Lily, 25, medical school lanyard around her neck, her mother's dark hair pulled back. Her eyes were already red from crying. Nobody moved. The silence stretched like a bridge someone was afraid to cross. Lily broke first. "Dad?" Her voice cracked on the word. "Aye, baby girl." She rushed forward, threw her arms around him, sobbing into his shoulder. "We looked for you." "We looked everywhere. Where were you?" David held her, one hand stroking her hair like he used to when she was small. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." Jake remained in the doorway, arms crossed, face hard, but his eyes were wet. Sarah spoke gently to him. "Your father didn't know about my dad's death. Your mother hid it to protect him. Then she got sick and everything fell apart." "That doesn't excuse 16 years. Jake's voice was controlled, military discipline holding back something volcanic. He walked forward slowly, sat on the edge of the bed, looking at David like he was trying to solve a puzzle. "Mom's last words. You know what they were?" David shook his head, still holding Lily. "Find your father. Tell him I forgive him. Tell him to forgive himself." Jake's voice cracked on the last word. David broke. "I didn't know about the funeral. I thought I'd lost my right to be there. I thought you'd be better off without me." "You don't get to decide that for us," Jake said. "You don't get to decide we're better off without you." He reached into his uniform pocket and pulled out a small case, opened it. Inside, polished and pristine, was David's bronze star. "Mom kept this. Showed it to us growing up. Made sure we knew what you did." Jake read from the citation. "For extraordinary heroism in connection with military operations, Specialist David C. Matthews repeatedly entered a burning vehicle under enemy fire on February 24, 1991. Despite sustaining injuries, he refused medical evacuation until all 6 soldiers were secured. His actions directly resulted in saving 6 lives." David stared at the medal. "I don't remember that." Lily pulled back to look at him. "PTSD. The doctor said you might have suppressed traumatic memories. But we remember. Mom made sure we knew our father was a hero." "I'm not a hero." David's voice was broken. "I let Rodriguez die. I let Thomas die. I let your mother die. I failed everyone." Jake leaned forward. "No, you survived. And you know what takes more courage than running into fire?" David looked at him. "Calling 911 when you're dying. Asking for help when everything in you says you don't deserve it. Admitting you're broken and letting someone try to fix you." Jake's voice softened. "That's the bravest thing you've ever done, Dad." The 3 of them held each other then, crying, an embrace 16 years overdue. Sarah stood in the doorway, her own tears falling, thinking that this was what her father died for. This moment, this healing. 2 days later, Sarah entered David's room with an envelope. He was sitting up, color returning to his face, eating solid food for the first time. Jake and Lily had just left after spending the morning with him. "This came for you," she said. "Postmark from Brooklyn." David's hands shook, taking it. The return address, M. Rodriguez. He opened it carefully, read it in silence. Sarah watched his face transform. Shock, then relief, then something like peace. When he finished, he handed it to her wordlessly. The letter was from Maria Rodriguez, Luis's widow. "Dear David, I received your letter after 33 years. Thank you for finally sending it. But I need you to know something. Your unit commander wrote to me in 1991. He told me about the sniper attack, about how you tried to save Luis, about how you held him as he died. He also told me about the next day, about the burning vehicle, about how you ran in 6 times, pulling out soldiers, even though you'd been injured. He said you did it because Luis couldn't be saved, but those 6 could. David, you didn't break your promise to Luis. You kept it. He asked you to tell me he loved me. But what he really wanted was for you to live, to be the good man he knew you were. You've spent 33 years punishing yourself for surviving. But honey, survival isn't a sin. It's a gift. Luis would be proud of you, not for the Bronze Star, for calling 911, for fighting to live, for finding your way back to your children. I forgave you decades ago. Now forgive yourself. P.S. I remarried in 1995. I have 3 children now, named my oldest son Luis Jr. He's in the Army too. He'd love to meet the man his father died beside. Welcome home, David. Love, Maria. Sarah finished reading, tears streaming down her face. She forgave you 30 years ago. She didn't need to forgive me. I didn't do anything wrong. David's voice was thick. That's what Jake said. That's what you've been trying to tell me. Surviving isn't a crime. No, it's not. Everyone forgave me except me. Sarah sat beside the bed. So forgive yourself. That's the last step. Dr. Chen entered then with final lab results and a smile that transformed his usually serious face. "David, I want to explain something about your case." He sat down, spreading papers on the bedside table. "The bacterial parasitic symbiosis you had, it's never been documented before. Your case study has been published. Because of it, we've screened other Gulf War veterans. We found 12 soldiers with the same infection, same combination of parasites and bacteria. All of them thought they had fatty lumps or nerve problems. All of them were dismissed by doctors. All of them were slowly dying." David's eyes widened. 12? Because of your case, we caught them in time. They're all being treated now. They'll live because you survived. Chen leaned forward. "Here's the extraordinary part. If you'd gotten treated earlier, years ago, we might have just removed a lump and sent you home. We never would have discovered the bacteria, never made the connection. Your suffering, your 16 years of refusing help out of pride, it almost killed you. But it also saved 12 lives." Sarah watched David process this. Rodriguez, the 6 from the fire, now 12 more. "I didn't fail them," David whispered. "No, Dad." Jake had returned, standing in the doorway with Lily. "You never failed anyone. You just forgot who you were. But we never did. We never stopped knowing you were a hero." David looked at his children, at Sarah, at Dr. Chen, at all these people who'd fought to save him when he'd stopped fighting for himself. "Thank you," he said. "All of you. Thank you for not giving up on me." 2 weeks later, David walked out of Boston Medical Center with a cane in one hand and his daughter's arm in the other. The automatic doors opened and March sunlight hit his face. He stopped, closed his eyes, breathed deep. "I forgot what fresh air smells like," he said. Lily smiled. "Where do you want to go, Dad?" David looked at his children. Jake in civilian clothes now, Lily still wearing her medical school lanyard like armor. "Home, if you'll have me." "Your room's been ready for 16 years, Jake said quietly. "We never gave up." They walked toward the parking lot, David moving slowly but steadily. Near the exit, a man sat against the brick wall. "Vietnam veteran," his cardboard sign said. "Anything helps. God bless." David stopped, looked at the man, weathered face, tired eyes, the same exhaustion David had worn for 14 years. "What's your name, brother?" The man looked up, surprised to be addressed as human. "Marcus. You a vet?" "Gulf War. Engineers." Marcus nodded with recognition. "First Cavalry. Vietnam. Tough times, man." David removed the Rolex from his wrist, looked at the inscription one last time. "Building the Future. Thomas and David." He'd built nothing for 16 years, but maybe that was about to change. He held the watch out to Marcus. "Man, I can't take that. That's worth—" "It's a reminder," David said. "No matter how broken you think you are, you can be fixed. Take it. Sell it. Get help. Promise me." Marcus held the watch like it was made of glass. Tears welled in his eyes. "I promise." David pulled a card from his pocket, Jake's number that Sarah had written down. "My son's a Marine. He helps veterans get into programs. Call him. He'll help you." Marcus looked at Jake, who nodded. "Any time, day or night." Marcus stood slowly, saluted. David saluted back. "Welcome home, Marcus." Welcome home. They drove to Jake's apartment in Cambridge. David sat in the back seat, watching Boston pass by. So much had changed, so much hadn't.
Lily kept turning around to look at him, like she was afraid he'd disappear. "I'm not going anywhere," he told her. "Promise?" "Promise." That evening, Sarah joined them for dinner. She'd brought the metal box with David's bronze star, the photos, the letters. They went through each item, David telling stories he'd locked away for decades. Kuwait, Rodriguez, Thomas, Emily. The children listened, cried, laughed, filling in pieces of their own memories. "Mom used to read your letters to us," Lily said. "The ones you sent from Kuwait." She kept them all. David hadn't known that, hadn't known so many things. 6 months passed like water finding its level. David found a small apartment in Somerville, walking distance from Jake. Started consulting part-time on a bridge renovation project, his first engineering work in 17 years. His hands remembered the calculations even when his mind hesitated. He spoke at VA hospitals about invisible wounds, about pride, about the courage it takes to ask for help. Veterans filled auditoriums to hear him. Afterward, men and women would approach, sharing their own stories of homelessness, PTSD, survival. "You give us hope," one told him. "You gave me hope first," David replied. "Just by showing up. Just by trying." He visited 2 graves every Sunday. Thomas Patrick Brennan's headstone read, "Fire Captain, Hero, Father." Beside it, Emily Rose Matthews, beloved wife and mother. David brought flowers to both. Sarah often came with him. "Thank you," he told the stones. "Thank you for never giving up on me. I'm trying to live the life you both saved. I'm trying to be worth it." One October afternoon, David received a letter. The handwriting was young, careful. Inside was a photo of a soldier in army uniform, maybe 25 years old. He looked remarkably like the Rodriguez David remembered. The letter read, "Mr. Matthews, my name is Luis Rodriguez, Jr. My mom told me about you and my father. She said you held his hand when he died, that you promised to tell her he loved her. I know it took you a long time to keep that promise, but thank you for keeping it. I joined the Army because of the stories Mom told about my dad, about how he served with honor, about how his friend, you, never forgot him. I'd be honored to meet you. You're a hero to our family. Welcome home. Luis Jr." David called the number on the letter that same day. They met the following week at a cafe in Boston. Luis Jr. had his father's smile, his father's build. They talked for 3 hours about Rodriguez, about Kuwait, about survival and memory, and the weight of names. "He'd be proud of you," David told him. "He'd be proud of you too," Luis Jr. replied. "Mom says you saved 6 people the day after he died. That's his legacy continuing through you." David cried in public for the first time since the hospital. Luis Jr. reached across the table and gripped his hand. One December evening, David returned to the Packard factory. The building looked smaller than he remembered, more broken. Graffiti covered the walls. On one section, someone had spray-painted, "Welcome Home." Beneath it, newer paint added, "To all who served, you are not forgotten." David touched the words, pulled a small American flag from his pocket, and wedged it into a crack in the brick. For Mac, for Rodriguez, for every veteran who'd suffered in silence. He turned and walked away, never looking back. A week before Christmas, David's phone buzzed with a text from Jake. "Dinner Sunday? Bringing someone special. I think you'll like her." David smiled and typed back, "I'll be there.
wouldn't miss it. He sat in his small apartment, modest but his own. The bronze star hung on the wall in a frame, beside the photo of his unit in Kuwait. Rodriguez circled in red, with an inscription beneath, Luis Rodriguez, 1968 to 1991. Your sacrifice will never be forgotten. Next to it hung a recent photo. David, Jake, Lily, and Sarah, all of them smiling at a Red Sox game. Jake's arm around his father's shoulder, Lily leaning her head against David's arm. Sarah looking at them like she was seeing her father's legacy fulfilled. David made coffee and sat by the window, watched people walk by on the street. Noticed a man sitting against a building with a sign, grabbed his coat. Minutes later, he sat down next to the man. "Hi, name's David. You a vet?" The man looked at him warily. "Yeah, Army, Iraq. Gulf War myself. Rough out here, isn't it?" "Yeah." David pulled out a card, a VA counselor he worked with. "This guy helped me. He's good, really listens. If you need help, call him. Tell him David Matthews sent you." The man took the card, studied it. "You really think it can get better?" David thought about everything. The parasites, the homelessness, the lost years, the children who never stopped looking, the father who died for him, the friend who died trying to save him, the 12 veterans alive because he'd suffered. "Yeah," he said, "I really do. It's hard. It's the hardest thing you'll ever do, but you're worth the fight." They sat together in silence, two veterans on a cold December evening, proof that broken things could be healed. That night, David recorded a video message for the VA hospital where he volunteered. They'd asked him to share his story for other veterans. He sat in his apartment, looking at the camera, and spoke from his heart. "My name is David Clayton Matthews. For 16 years I was homeless. I thought I was too broken to be fixed, too ashamed to ask for help, too proud to admit I was dying. Pride almost killed me. Not parasites, not bacteria. Pride. The belief that asking for help made me weak. But here's what I learned. Survival isn't a sin. It's a responsibility to honor those we lost by actually living. My friend Mac used to say freedom isn't free. He was right. The real price isn't paid on the battlefield. It's paid every day after, when you choose to forgive yourself, when you choose to ask for help, when you choose to live, not just survive. If you're watching this and you're struggling, please know you're not broken, you're not forgotten, and you deserve to live. Welcome home. He stopped recording, sent the file. Then he opened his laptop and began writing. A letter to every veteran support organization he could find, offering to speak, to volunteer, to help, one life at a time. That's how you paid back the people who saved you. One life at a time. Outside his window, snow began to fall on Boston. Inside, David Matthews, father, veteran, survivor, poured another cup of coffee and kept working. He was home. Sometimes the heaviest burden we carry isn't in our bodies, it's in our hearts. David's story reminds us that pride can be more dangerous than any disease, and that the bravest thing we'll ever do isn't facing an enemy on a battlefield, but asking for help when we need it most. For too many of us, especially those who served, who built careers, who raised families with our own two hands, admitting we're struggling feels like failure. But here's the truth David learned after 16 years of suffering. Healing begins the moment we stop running from ourselves. It starts when we forgive ourselves for being human. When we remember that the people who love us don't need us to be perfect, they just need us to be present. If you've ever felt too broken to be fixed, too ashamed to reach out, or believed your family would be better off without you, David's journey is for you. Because no matter how far you've fallen, or how long you've been lost, it's never too late to come home. The question isn't whether you deserve a second chance. It's whether you're brave enough to take it. What's one thing that's kept you from asking for help when you needed it most? Have you ever reconnected with someone after years apart? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today.